Most people spend their entire lives begging for approval. They chase respect, they chase belonging, they chase applause, and in the end, they die chained. But the ones who reject society, the ones who laugh at the rules, spit on its rituals, and refuse illusions, become freer than kings. Diogenes proved it. He had no throne, no palace, no wealth. He had a barrel. And yet, his fire humiliated emperors. His defiance shook philosophers. His rejection of society made him more powerful than those who ruled it. Because rejecting society is the highest form of power. And deep down, you already know it. You live it. You felt it every time you refused to kneel. You felt it every time you rejected society. Every time you rejected the game. Every time exile became your proof. If you've carried the fire of rejection your whole life, you're a Carthasian. Claim your path now. Join the Carthasians on Patreon from the link in the description box. Society is a machine. It doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you're free. It only cares if you obey. It trains you in school to sit quietly. It trains you in work to follow orders. It trains you in culture to bow before illusions. Because obedience is fuel. Without it, society collapses. That's why it punishes you when you question. That's why it mocks you when you refuse. That's why it exiles you when you don't kneel. Your exile has never been random. It has been the proof that you were too powerful for the machine. Diogenes rejected wealth. He rejected titles. He rejected respectability. When people asked him what he wanted, he said only one thing: freedom. When they offered him comfort, he laughed. When Alexander the Great stood before him, he told him to move aside because Diogenes understood the truth. Society is chains, and the only way to be free is to reject it entirely. That's why he was mocked. That's why he was hated. That's why he was exiled. But that's also why he was freer than any king. Inside Diogenes' barrel, rejection is no longer shame, it's initiation. If you're ready to wear exile as your crown, this is your place. Enter Diogenes' barrel now on Patreon. Find the link in the description box. You've never fit into their conversations. You've never enjoyed their games. You've never felt at home in their systems. And you've hated yourself for it sometimes. You've wondered why you can't just be normal like everyone else. Why you can't just obey. Why you can't just belong. But here's the truth: you were never meant to. You were never meant to kneel. You were never meant to play the game. You were never meant to be chained. Your discomfort with society is not failure, it is fire, it is catharsis, it's proof you were born to reject what poisons everyone else. It's proof you were chosen. Think about it. The moment you say no, the chains loosen. The moment you reject, you feel lighter. The moment you refuse, your fire roars. That's why rejection feels powerful, because it is. It's the power society cannot control. It's the power kings envy. It's the power Diogenes carried in his barrel. And it's the power you've carried your whole life, even when you tried to silence it, even when you tried to play along. If you're ready to stop apologizing for rejection and start weaponizing it, begin with the Pythagorean path. Join the Pythagorean path on Patreon now. True freedom doesn't come from wealth. True freedom doesn't come from approval. True freedom doesn't come from comfort. It comes from rejection. The moment you stop playing their game, you're free. The moment you stop chasing this approval, you're free. The moment you reject society itself, you are free. Diogenes proved it, and now it's your turn. The Carthaginians are rising. Reject society, claim fire, join the Carthaginians on Patreon now. When Diogenes spat on their rules, the Athenians called him insane. When he mocked their traditions, they called him dangerous. When he refused their illusions, they laughed at him. But the laughter wasn't about Diogenes, it was about them. They mocked because they were afraid. They laughed because he exposed their chains. They ridiculed him because he carried the freedom they couldn't imagine. And that's the same reason they've mocked you. When you spoke too honestly, they called you arrogant. When you refused to play along, they excluded you. When you chose truth over belonging, they punished you because rejection terrified them. If you've been mocked your whole life for choosing fire over obedience, it's proof you're on the Diogenes path. Claim it fully. Enter Diogenes Barrel on Patreon from the link in the description box. Society doesn't forgive those who reject it. It can't, because rejection is proof that obedience is not inevitable. And if one person can walk away, others can too. That's why rejection always feels like exile. That's why you've been punished your whole life with loneliness. That's why you've been cast aside, silenced, betrayed. Not because you were weak, but because you were powerful. Your exile has never been failure, it has always been initiation, catharsis. Society doesn't need you free, it needs you chained. Chained to jobs you hate, chained to traditions that suffocate you, chained to rules that poison you. Because chained people obey, chained people stay quiet, chained people keep the machine alive. And your rejection of society is proof that you cannot be chained. That's why they punish you. That's why you've suffered more. That's why you've always felt alien in your own world. Because your fire refuses chains. If chains have always suffocated you, it's because you were meant to break them. Begin inside the Pythagorean path on Patreon. Join the Carthaginians now from the link in the description box. You felt heavier than others. You've carried more in silence. You've endured more exile. And you've wondered, why me? Why do I suffer more? Why is my life harder? Because you reject what they obey. You are free, you're authentic, you are real. The placeholders kneel willingly. They swallow poison daily and call it normal. They belong to society because they never question it. But you've never been able to. Your soul rejects the poison. Your fire refuses obedience. Your heart cannot kneel. And that rejection has been your burden, but also your crown. Diogenes walked through Athens as if it didn't own him, because it didn't. He mocked their parade. He spat on authority. He stripped their illusions bare. And he survived in exile. He lived in a barrel. He owned nothing, and yet owned himself completely. That's why his story burns in you, because you recognize yourself in him. You are Diogenes, because his exile mirrors your own, because his rejection of society is the same fire you've carried all your life. Inside Diogenes' barrel on Patreon, exile becomes initiation. If you've recognized yourself in Diogenes, this is where you belong. Enter Diogenes Barrel on Patreon now. Find the link in the description box. Power isn't what kings have. It isn't gold. It isn't armies. It isn't thrones. True power is the ability to walk away anytime. That's why Diogenes had more power than Alexander the Great. That's why you've carried more power than those who mocked you. That's why rejection is the highest form of freedom, because the one who rejects cannot be owned, and the one who cannot be owned is already a king or a queen. Rejection has made you angry, furious, and you've wondered if that rage is weakness, if something is wrong with you. It isn't. That rage is proof. Proof that your soul refuses chains. Proof that your fire cannot be poisoned. Proof that your destiny is greater than their obedience. Rage is sacred. Rage is the voice of truth that society cannot silence. And if you've carried that rage, it's because you were chosen to. If your rage has burned silently long enough, it's time to sharpen it into firepower. Join the Cathars now on Patreon from the link in the description box. Society will never reward your fire. It will never thank you for your questions. It will never applaud your rejection because your very existence is proof of its weakness. You show that its rules are illusions. You show that its chains are optional. You show that its obedience is poison. And so it must punish you. It must exile you. It must mock you. Because your rejection is more dangerous than any army. If you've been punished your whole life for refusing to kneel, you're a Carthasian. Claim your place now. Join the Catharsis on Patreon from the link in the description box. Kings sit in palaces, but they are prisoners of them. They have gold, but they are chained by it. They have crowds, but they are suffocated by them. They envy the exile. They envy the one who owns nothing but his fire. They envy the one who can laugh at them without fear. That's why Alexander envied Diogenes. That's why the powerful secretly envy you, because they can command millions, but they cannot command you. Power is fragile. It depends on obedience. It depends on illusion. It depends on chains. But rejection is untouchable because the one who rejects cannot be bribed. The one who rejects cannot be silenced. The one who rejects cannot be owned. That's why rejection is the highest form of power, because it makes you freer than kings, stronger than rulers, more dangerous than armies. If you're ready to wield rejection as your true weapon, begin inside the Pythagorean path. Join the Pythagorean path on Patreon from the link in the description box. Exile has felt heavy, lonely, suffocating. But exile is not weakness, it is your crown. Exile means you refused chains. It means you carried truth. Exile means you were chosen to stand where others bowed. That crown may not shine with jewels, but it burns with fire. It is brighter than gold. It is heavier than thrones. It is freer than kingdoms. And you've been wearing it your whole life. Inside Diogenes' barrel on Patreon, exile is not punishment, it's coronation. If you're ready to wear your crown without shame, proudly, this is your place. Enter Diogenes' barrel on Patreon now. Most people suppress their rage. They bury it under obedience. They silence it under fear. But you could never, and neither could Diogenes. His rage was his freedom. His contempt for society was his crown. His laughter at kings was his throne. And your rage is the same. It has burned through every exile. It has roared through every silence. It has survived every punishment. That rage is your key to fire, your key to leadership, your key to power. If you know your rage is not weakness but destiny, then your place is in the Aurelius Council. Lead with fire. Join the Aurelius Council on Patreon now. Find the link in the description box. Diogenes rejected society and became freer than kings. Now the choice is yours. You can keep drinking poison. You can keep kneeling to illusions. You can keep suffocating in chains. Or you can reject it all. You can spit on their rules. You can laugh at the rituals. You can burn with fire instead of suffocate in silence. Because rejection is freedom. Rejection is power. Rejection is destiny. Society is poison. Rejection is cure. Diogenes carried his cure in a barrel. You carry yours in exile. Now it's time to weaponize it. The Carthaginians exist to turn exile into thrones, rejection into crowns, and rage into leadership. Three paths stand before you: the Pythagorean path, where rejection becomes discipline and rage is sharpened into clarity; Diogenes' barrel, where exile becomes coronation and loneliness is transformed into freedom; the Aurelius Council, where leaders are forged, where rejection becomes the throne of fire. You don't need their approval. You don't need their change. You don't need their poison. You only need fire. And that fire is already yours. Join the Carthaginians now on Patreon. Reject society. Wear your crown.